Hi, everybody. I'm Angela O'Neill, and I am here today with my friend Craig Kupka. Hi, Craig. Thank you so much for joining
Hi,
me.
Angela.
Craig and I are friends from the music world, and I met Craig actually through Paul Litteral, whose record we're talking about today. I've sung with Craig's beautiful big band called Kupka Sonic, and those guys are actually releasing a record very soon, so keep your eye out for that. It's amazing sounding. Congratulations to you guys, Craig.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And
Michael Wax, yeah.
yeah, Michael Weatherwax wrote a bunch of the arrangements and some originals as well, and the band just sounds amazing on that record. So I'm really thrilled for you guys, and the process is moving forward. I love that. Um, so I wanted to come on today because we're kind of talking about it's Friday right now, and Paul Litteral's record actually drops worldwide on Monday, May Day. May Day, May Day, Paul Litteral's record is dropping.
Mayday, Mayday. I don't know about I don't know how to comment on that timing.
So,
Yeah. Mayday in
so
Russia means a different thing to the Mayday
maybe
here.
so, maybe so. I think it's a good thing. I think of it as being, the May, what was it? Remember the maypole back in the day?
Oh yes, the Maypole.
It was a celebration, so it's kind of a celebration of spring,
Yep.
and for us, it's a celebration of this project being completed, and and the project actually definitely would not have been completed had you and your family not been an incredible source of support on this project. When we first started, Paul and I were trying to figure out kind of the workflow on how we were going to accomplish what we wanted. We came up with a list of tunes, and then he said to me, Craig is in 100%. He's going to play trombone for us. We should just talk to him, whatever is happening. And I said, really? He said, oh, yeah, he's going to come in and play for us. He supports me 100%. Craig, tell me, how did you meet Paul, and how did you get to the point where you guys have such an amazing relationship, and you came in and played beautiful trombone on the tracks on Paul's record?
Um, it was a coincidental meeting. Was looking for some place to play. I was teaching high school at Hoover, and I was eyeing the ball that maybe in the next 10 or 15 years I was going to retire, and it was time to start really gearing up on trombone again. So I was looking for a local band to play with, and I found PCC Big Band, and so I went to a rehearsal there. I called the director of that band, who was an alumnus of the Stan Kenton Orchestra, so she had really good roots.
Amazing.
I went down to play, and she said right away, she said, "Well, we don't have a very strong lead trombone player, so do you play lead?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what I do in big bands.
Yeah.
I go guest chair or the lead chair." So I went down, and this lead trumpet player was sitting there, and his name was Paul Litteral. And from the very beginning, I noticed instantly, he and I phrased together. Because in a big band, you follow the lead trumpet player. If you're a brass player, he sets the tone for how the phrases are phrased,
Right, right.
how long the falls are, and what kind of articulation to use. And his sense was exactly the same as mine. So the very first rehearsal, it was like we were a team.
Wow.
And so from there, we hit it off, and somehow, and I don't remember now the sequence of events, but I became the leader of the big band at Glendale Community College. And
Oh,
so
okay.
the very first thing I did was bring Paul in, um, and say we need a strong lead player in
Yeah.
there. And so Paul came in there. So now we were seeing each other twice a week. We're playing
Right.
PCC big band and GCC big band. Um, and so our relationship built, and from there, uh, Paul at that time he was getting more session work, with singer songwriters and other artists, and so he began calling me to do sessions with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then we brought my son Colin in.
Yes.
We need a strong saxophone player, and then we found that the three of us was like Paul and I. We could record like you can't believe when the
Yeah,
three
yeah,
of us
yeah.
are together.
Let me
When
take
we
a second. Let me take a
sure.
second to tell the folks about Colin Kupka. Colin also actually played on Paul's record beautifully. Colin's an alto player. He's multi instrumental, obviously,
Yeah.
in the woodwinds. But he played alto on this record, and Colin is just like, from being born a musician. And
Yes.
so you guys are doing sessions, the three of you.
We're doing sessions, and a lot of sessions, there's no charts. We come in, and Paul is really adept at coming up with lines. And so
Yeah,
he'd be kind of the leader, and then I'm really adept at harmonizing. And so I could harmonize to whatever Paul came up with. And then Colin is just, he would hear it one time and then he
yeah,
could play it. I mean, he's the savant of the three of us. So,
yeah. He's
you
the
know,
savant of the city. Uh huh.
yeah, of the city. Um, so it was a really fine trio, and we were getting some work.
Yeah.
And then prior to COVID, we met this guy, and Paul again had a fishing buddy named Bob Sullivan. And
Yes.
Bob Sullivan, as if people don't know, was a magnificent booker of gigs
Okay.
and crazy gigs. And so I'm nuts, and Sullivan's nuts. So and Paul's crazy. And so all of a sudden, Paul and Colin and I are doing Dixieland trio gigs, marching congregations to the Pacific
Oh,
Ocean.
I remember that one now that you say that.
Yes, or some guy dies and he wants his ashes buried at sea, and he wants a Dixieland trio to play. Another one bites the dust when the boat comes back in. So he's, Sullivan would find the craziest gig.
Oh
A
my
couple
God.
getting married in Palm Springs that wants Dixieland David Bowie tunes.
Okay.
So these are the gigs that Sullivan were booking, and Paul and Colin and I were square in the middle of
Yeah.
these nutty gigs.
Yeah.
So the relationship just kept on going, and till he's brother, he's a member of the family.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when we heard about the album, Colin and I, Greg doesn't live with us anymore. Of course, he's got his wife and his family that he's raising. So
Yeah.
Colin and I said, when we heard Paul was going to do this album with you, we said, "Oh, we're in.
Yeah.
We're in. We don't need any money. We don't. Whatever we can do to support Paul."
Uh,
Because like I said, the relationship is just built so that he's part of the family.
yeah. Yeah. I
And
mean,
so,
I
go
mean, when
ahead.
you've played Another One Bites the Dust at Sea, it's
Yes.
bonding.
Yep. Yeah. The kind of humor, burying the ashes, nor the ashes. That was
You
funny
know,
stuff. And
you
that's a
know,
bonding thing, when you're
it
done with
is. It
that.
is. And, it's funny because we were talking yesterday, Paul and I, about, if you can't find joy in what you're doing, a little bit of joy, a little bit of humor, not all the time, but those moments when you really are able to just have amazing fun with people you have a bond with like that, people who you
Right.
naturally have resonate with, there's just nothing like that. And that was true for me with Paul, too. I was so lucky. I can't remember where I met him. I think a big band or something, and we just started chatting, and his playing is so very distinct. And I was actually talking to him yesterday about what's so distinct about his playing. And when we sight read stuff, he's in the Outrageous Eight, for those folks who don't know, and we sight read
Yes.
stuff. Paul's reading, and his, like you say, his ability to look at something brand new and come up with a plan, his ability to be so precise, is actually really amazing. He can look at something he's sight reading and sing through the rhythms the very first time with ease,
Ease.
and then translate that to playing immediately.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't need a glass of water. He doesn't need some personal time. He can just jump on it. It's just like you were saying, as far as going into the sessions and being able to really invent something with ease.
That's a
It
great term.
it's just amazing. And that's actually, I don't know if you know how we ended up doing this record, but it was COVID, and we were in the backyard one day, and we were talking about, we had just finished recording our record, which we did live in the backyard of Al Tims's house, that being the Outrageous Eight. And Paul just literally turned to me. He goes, would you be interested in doing a solo record for me? And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding? He said, no,
Yeah.
I just, over the years, I have collected a number of tunes that are kind of from like a particular decade in my life that resonated. And I feel like there's something new I could bring to those tunes. And that's actually why we ended up calling it Legacy. Because
Title.
it literally is, each tune has real personal significance for him.
Yes.
That it was kind of representative of an era. And when he said to me that that was the concept of the record, I was like, oh, I love that. So, I mean, it literally, they're very not related to each other, the tunes.
Right.
You've heard the
Right.
record,
Right.
but they are like Hard Times was when he was at the Uptown Horns. They had a jam session every Tuesday at a famous place I can't remember. Paul could remember. And
Absolutely.
they opened the night every Tuesday with Hard Times, and everybody came in and soloed and jammed, and
Yeah.
that's why Hard Times is the first tune on the record. So when it came to doing this record, and Paul and I were talking about, okay, here's the list of tunes that we want to do, and he mentioned that you and Colin were in. I mean, two of the most talented players that I know in Los Angeles, being willing to support the record was a huge. I mean, I was filled with the joy of that moment. Plus, I personally like you both and resonate with you both very
Mutually,
much.
mutual,
I
mutual.
I feel so lucky. And then when we found out that we both went to UCLA, I mean, I was in theater arts and you were in music, but we both Bruins,
Yep.
and also just, I think, Craig, what I admire so much about you is how much still I've never seen you not take great joy in music. And I really admire that quality in you. I mean, sometimes it's kind of hard to see the future of music. I think the way things are today. But the truth of the matter is, those moments when you get to play music and you get to enjoy playing music with other people, it's worth it.
Yeah, it's church. That's
Yeah,
church.
it's church.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, so the folks don't know. We started the record kind of the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. We started doing it little piecemeal. People remembering or not remembering that things were kind of closed, and we could do stuff remotely. So the first couple tunes, we actually recorded a lot of it MIDI and remotely, and then put it together. I did the vocals at Bill Bodine's house, but just in his small studio in his house. And at some point, we had to do bigger pieces with big band, and we ended up coming to the Kupka Sonic Studio, and being lucky enough to have your son Greg participate in engineering and mixing the last half of the record, essentially, like the bigger pieces that were big
Right.
band. And at that case, we actually had you play some trombone as well. And those pieces just sound so amazing. Can you tell people kind of what was when you listened to the record, what are your kind of first impressions, even just about any of the tracks that are on there?
Well, I think the legacy title is good. I was really amazed at the breadth and broadness of the musical selections. And of course, the band that you got together with Bill Bodine playing bass like as only he can. Um, you got great musicians, Sam Morgan, all these, Harry Swanberg, all of these wonderful players. Paul's impacted the community to the point where these really great players want to play with him
Yeah,
and want to support him.
yeah,
So and Rocky did some wonderful arrangements. So the music was really, really well put together and
yeah,
broad, and that happens to fit my personal aesthetic because I love broad-based approaches where
yeah,
there's lots of different styles and genres going. One, it doesn't have to be sequential in any sense. You can jump around all over the place, and I'm real comfortable. That's my personal aesthetic. So the album fits that for me perfectly.
yeah,
Um, and each piece has meaning for Paul. And so that gives there's a depth to it. Because this man has, as you probably recounted to your listeners and viewers, has been everywhere and done everything with everybody.
mm-hmm.
So his discography is you can't find another player around that has anything approaching this.
No,
So his whole life has been this spectacular achievement. I mean, when you think of him growing up with a dirt road in rural Kentucky with a son of a coal miner, everybody who died from black lung disease,
yeah,
And his only out from that was trumpet playing. And that's the classic American success story, where you find an out from a rural poverty area and make it.
Yeah.
And through that trumpet. And then you have the picture he carries around of the phone of him standing on stage with the Rolling Stones, and there's 250,000 people in the audience.
Yes.
You say, from the coal mines of Kentucky, where they were grooming him to be a coal miner,
Yep.
to playing on that kind of stage with the Rolling Stones. What a journey.
Yeah.
And that I get to play with this man and that he wants to play with me. And so that's just, I'm so grateful for that, and how much it's enriched my life, my association with him.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm with you there. I'm put me high up on the list of fans of Paul Literal. Again, I
Yeah.
think that he's like a journeyman musician. I mean, so the
Yep.
way he left Kentucky, in case people don't know, is he joined the Navy band
Yes.
and traveled with the Navy for a couple of years and played in that band, and actually still to this day has friends online and stuff. A big handful of friends who played in the Navy band with him back in the day and still support and love his playing. And and in every, I mean, they're buying the T-shirts and buying the records. At every place that he's gone, he collects more fans and people who I think see the passion that he has for being great.
Yes.
He told me a couple of weeks ago, and it totally resonated with me and kind of rang out. He said, when we're playing at a show, I don't care where it is, I play one note wrong and I lose sleep at night.
I've played so many gigs with Paul, and I've had to kick him in the shin
Yeah.
so many times because he'll miss a note, and that's, oh my God. And I'm just going, come on, Paul, next tune.
Yes, yes, but that, it's because of that
Yeah.
that his
Perfection.
sense of perfectionism. Now, I have to tell you, as a producer on his record, sometimes he drove me crazy because we'd finish something and then he'd be like, "Oh, I want to go back and fix a little." And I'd be like, "Okay, now you're gonna get it." But his desire to be so great at it and to continue to be inspired, which is, I think, sometimes what's hard to do with music. Sometimes you want to throw in the towel. You're like, oh my God, really? Does it have to be this hard? And sometimes it really is. Look, it's not all sunshine and roses. There's times when, for me as the producer, I sometimes, like 3/4 of the way through the record, I was like, okay, we're actually not going to finish this project. It's just not going to happen. I don't have any more money. I don't have any more desire. I've totally lost track of why we're doing this.
Right.
And you just have to get back together and go, okay, why are we doing this again? Okay, we're doing this because we're celebrating your lifelong commitment to
Correct.
greatness.
To greatness.
And so if I have to take a break for a couple of weeks so I can earn some money, so we can inject some more money in the project, I have to go back and remember why it is that we're doing that record. I'm happy that Paul is really pleased and satisfied with this record. That's
Mhm.
actually the only fan that I really need to like the record.
Well, Angela, the whole thing is you. This whole project is you.
Not
Uh,
at all. Not at all. Really,
no,
it's
I mean, don't deflect. Don't deflect. Without you, there is no album. There is no great set of tunes that is out there for anybody to enjoy. You are the glue, and your infectiousness and your enthusiasm for music energizes the people around you. And you bring that to the room, not only when you sing, but when you produce. You're a wonderful producer, and the donuts are fantastic. Um, so, and I know how you had to raise money because there were so many donuts at those sessions that you did.
those donuts are all Paul. Paul,
Oh, it's
in
all
fact,
Paul. I
he
thought you
told
were
me
doing the
yesterday.
donuts.
No, I did half of them. He told me yesterday. He was like, if we ever make money on this record, I want my money back for those donuts. I was like,
For the
okay,
donuts.
uh,
So,
yeah, yeah.
and to me, I have a little metaphor, and that is that I'll tell people, they say, why do you like doing this so much? And I said, we call us guys, boys and girls, call it playing. So when I leave my wife Nancy to go out and do a gig, I said, hey babe, I'm going to go out and play. And that's just the same as being a little 7-year-old kid going outside to play in the playground. So then you get to this gig and you have all these other people that want to be there and play, and the joy And in the middle of all this is Paul. So,
Yes.
so my gosh, it's a
Yes.
joyous experience,
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's true. I mean, yeah, I thought about play, but I didn't really think about it in that way, and that is actually brilliant. And there's a lot because when you're producing something that you're recording as opposed to playing live, I mean,
Right.
there's all kinds of problems. There's all kinds of issues of managing it and getting people to where they need to go, and there's how do you get the drum track that you recorded to this new studio where you're going to do the horns. I mean, all of
Yeah.
those management issues. And
Right.
I really appreciate the compliment when you say when you give me the compliment for working so hard on this record. But without Bill Bodine and him, and also his son Chill Bodine, who
Yeah.
mixed the first half of the record, and it really sounds amazing. I Can't Make You Love Me was him. Another You is him.
Stunning.
Um, he did a lot of Desperado. Steve Weisberg,
Yeah.
as you know, also did the strings on Desperado, produced the strings. Honestly, I just don't feel like it was me. I mean, I feel like I helped sometimes, kind of organize everything, but in general, it was the inspiration of Paul's dedication that inspired people to play great. And you know what? Like you say, Paul is actually really fun to be around, and
Yes, he is.
for
Yes.
those people who are young musicians, I have to say that is a thing.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's actually kind of so little money sometimes in music and stuff. Please enjoy yourself and have a good time, and make it a good time for other people.
Right. Right. And so for Paul, that's his livelihood, is playing. So although there's little money, he still has to forge his way.
Yeah,
And he's managing to do it just in a beautiful and gracious way. And as anybody in this field knows, right now it is really tough to do this as a player.
yeah,
Uh, so the fact that he's able to continue on and has the spirit that he has and the sound that he has and the he keeps stretching himself out. He's doing more jazz improvisation now. And of course, with his skill level, he's great at everything he does. So um, he keeps it going, and his spirit is so positive. Everybody loves Paul.
yeah,
Um, and so Bill Bodine, my goodness, a studio bass player who has credits that go up the wazoo, the amount of effort and energy he put to this
yeah,
because of his relationship with Paul,
yeah.
and also because of you. And you're we have a term for it in the Kupka family, Gemütlichkeit.
Oh, that's a new one
Personality,
for me. Please do translate.
Gemütlichkeit. Um, uh, and an inviting, friendly, enjoyable presence.
Oh,
And
that is
that's
a
what
great
you
word. Say it
bring.
one more
That's what
time.
you oh my gosh. And inviting, delightful, warm, fuzzy presence, Gemütlichkeit. And you bring that, and you do that with your band, The Outrageous Eight. Your rehearsals are warm and inviting. And at underlying the thing that binds every one of us together, it's the music.
Yeah,
And so we're there and we're having fun and eating donuts and doing this stuff. But man, when it comes time to play, the focus is 100% on making this music as the best we can possibly do. And we all have really good skill levels, so the music is going to be at a wonderful level.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I agree with you. That is a great word, and I love that. I'm gonna try to figure out how to say that word because I dig it. And all the Kupkas have that too, so that makes sense to me that that would be the Kupka family
yeah,
family
yeah,
word. You
yeah.
all have it. I can't say enough about Greg.
Oh my gosh.
Greg kind of came in and was our white knight. I kind of alluded to it earlier,
Yeah,
but we were
yeah,
about halfway through the record, and we needed a new place to start recording the second half that we needed bigger rooms for
right.
to do full horn sections and stuff. And we were faltering, frankly. I was kind of trying to figure out how to do the bigger stuff, how to afford to
Right.
do everything, and also for a lot of folks, for the folks who are session players, I wanted to make sure and pay everyone. I really, I mean, I uh, bless you for donating your time, but those folks who again are session players who need to get paid, I
Right.
wanted to pay those folks,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
wouldn't do it until I had the money to do that.
Right.
And so I came to Greg and I called him on the phone. I said, okay, here's the situation. I can't figure out what we're doing. I can't figure out a workflow. I know I have these like 6 more tunes, including like a shorty, to finish. And I don't really know how we're going to do it or how we're going to push the elements around. He said, you know what? He literally said, I don't think it's going to be a problem. And I was like, how do you see that? He's like, no, I think we'll go down there. We'll start to see what we have to work with. And Bill Bodine kind of put everything we already had on a thumb drive, and we just transferred it over to Greg, and we just started plugging away. I mean, just
Yeah.
do it one little thing at a time. Okay, so what are we missing from this tune?
Yeah.
Okay, let's schedule that for 2 weeks from now. Oh, that one, that person got sick, and in those days, oh, we're closed again. Everyone's wearing masks again. Okay, two
Right.
weeks later. And what's hard, I think, is to keep your enthusiasm when things get screwed up, or
Yes.
you can't have that player, or that player's like, oh, I don't drive to the valley all of a sudden after you're booked, or whatever it is that interrupts the enthusiasm. What's really hard is to get the enthusiasm going again after everything has already collapsed. Like
Yeah.
all the stuff that you set up, all of the times for everybody, all 10 people involved, and then it all gets wiped away. Now, how do you kind of reorient yourself and
Right.
restabilize yourself and move forward? That was the biggest challenge to me on this record. Was trying to do that because of COVID and the fact that people also still are getting COVID. So that's still a thing,
Yes. Yes.
where sessions will collapse because it's like, oh, we wanted to do just this violin or just whatever. And now we can't because that person's not available. What do you do? you
Right.
know, yeah, I mean, and partly because of people like Greg, who's just like, yeah, we can do it in 2 weeks. And Greg has a complicated life. He has childcare and he teaches and he has a lot of stuff going on. He was so willing to just jump in there with that Kupka sonic energy and just kind of try to fix things little by little. And let's not even talk about his talent as an engineer.
It's phenomenal. And I have to tell you one little story
Okay,
about the studio, because it's a digital studio now. And he came to me a number of years ago because the studio used to be Kupka Studios, and I was the engineer.
right.
Um, but as I aged, it was blatantly obvious to me that my hearing was not as sharp as it was before.
Hmm.
And so Greg came to me and he said, Dad, I'm going to take over the studio. And to do that, we've got to get rid of all this analog crap. And we have to turn it into a digital studio. Otherwise, we can't compete. We can't work in today's market.
Hmm.
And so I said to Greg, okay, let's start selling the stuff, and we'll turn it all into digital gear and plugins and stuff for you to run the studio. So he assumed command of the Kupka Studios, Kupka Sonic Studios, set lined up the equipment, lined up the software, lined up the hard drives, whatever he needed to do to turn that into a good place for musicians to come and record.
Yeah,
Um, and he also, and Colin as well, all love Paul.
yeah,
So that's the effect. It wasn't him doing something for his father. It was because he wanted to do something to support Paul.
yeah.
Um, and so Greg he's a tremendously skilled engineer with wonderful ears.
Yes.
So he brought that in, and he's fast worker, so it's very efficient. And uh, like I said, Colin, Paul, and I have played with a lot of different engineers, and the general quality is quite high. Uh,
Super
uh,
high.
Throughout Southern California, the engineers we worked with have been really wonderful, and Greg is right at the very top.
He
of
really
all
is.
of that.
He really is. He has a great feel. I
Yes,
don't know if people know or not, but Greg himself is a musician, plays violin. His wife is a musician. They both teach music, I think, unless I'm
yes, you do.
incorrect.
Uh-huh.
And he just he comes by it he comes by it honestly because you're a
Yeah,
very talented musician and a family of musicians, and so just his feel and his instincts are amazing. I mean, literally, we would finish something, and I would say it. And sometimes when you're dealing with people mixing stuff, you have to give them very specific kinds of
absolutely.
ideas about what. I really didn't have to do that with Greg. I had a really natural workflow with him, where I would say, "Look, you do what you think is best with the mix, and then I'll listen to it. And then if I hear anything that kind of doesn't jive for me, then I will." Correct it, but he basically had free reign on the
Uh-huh.
mixing. I did not micromanage him whatsoever because I know just because I've been in the actual recording sessions with him,
Right.
and every response that he has to recording is exactly spot on. Exactly. We would do a take and he'd be like, and I'd be like, exactly, let's go again. Or he would be like, oh, I heard something weird, and we'll play it back,
Oh,
and I'll be like, oh, I didn't hear that. Great catch. He, like you said, he has great ears. He has great musical sense,
yeah.
and he understands the technology and what it can do, what its limitations are.
Yeah.
So it's just an all around incredible experience working with him and with your guys' studio. I don't know, it's up in Glendale. In case people in the audience are wondering, it's an amazing place up on the hills in Glendale. You can certainly reach out to me, and I can give you guys the information. If they wanted to track you down, if somebody was interested in recording over there, how do they track you guys down? What's the best way to do that?
Call me.
Okay.
Piece of cake. It's really easy.
All right. Very good.
Or
So,
contact me on Facebook, one or the
yeah.
other. Yeah.
There you go. That's probably the
Yeah.
easiest way to do it since we're doing
Yeah.
YouTube. So if
Yeah.
you do, or if you have a project that you're interested in getting to the next level, you have ideas, you have a little bit of money. I would say go to Greg Kupka. I know it's hard because of Craig and Greg, but Greg
Yeah.
Kupka's the son. He's the engineer, mixer, and amazing. They have all the stuff there. In case people are kind of wondering if they've not produced a record before, they have all the
Yeah.
mics, all the recording gear, everything you basically need. You walk in with your horn, and they have the music stands and the chairs, everything. You bring the donuts. That's the thing people
That
need to
you
know.
bring the donuts, right?
But other than that, it's like a full service kind of studio situation with Greg and Kupka Studios. So like I say, up in Glendale, we couldn't have been any happier with the situation we found ourselves in. A beautiful experience, and the end result. I mean, we had
Oh my goodness.
feedback recently. It's just like, it just sounds like a pro project, I think. Were you
Uh,
happy with how everything got kind of recorded and finished in those big band pieces?
Absolutely. I was thrilled with the sound, and thrilled with the arrangements, and thrilled with the players. So it was a totally joyful experience for me. And as a speaking as a trombone player, to walk in a couple of times, I felt like I was the king of the hill there. You made me feel really comfortable. Um, and Bill was a wonderful producer, very demanding, but at the same time, it was always about the music.
Yeah,
And as long as it's about that, I'm there, I'm gone. Let's go. And so the challenge of trying to do these charts and come in and lay it down, and do it quickly, because time is money in the studio, so you want to get it done.
yeah,
And the environment that was created by you and Paul and Bill Bodine was so friendly and warm and always about the music. So it just brings the best out in you. And a couple of times, I'm still really proud there. I can't remember the tune, but there was this kind of Latin feel, and I nailed it the first take. And I went and I put my horn down and I looked at Paul and I said, "That's why you bring me in here, buddy."
I I think that was For Once in My Life.
I
That
think
That
so. I
Harry
think so.
Smallenberg
Yeah,
arrangement
of
of For
course,
Once
a
in My
Harry
Life.
Smallenberg, it would be the hardest thing.
Yeah, yeah. There's some hard stuff in general. I mean, Rocky,
Yes, Rocky does too.
Do It Again is actually our next single, and there's
Yes,
that weird turnaround about
yes.
three-quarters of the way through the thing. You know what I'm talking about? It's like I don't even know how to describe that
Only
rhythm.
Rocky.
Only from the brilliant mind of Rocky Davis. But there's some tough stuff in general in these pieces, and so yeah, we're so lucky to have the level of engineering with Greg and the players. Honestly, people came in. We didn't go over and over and over. It was
No,
one, two, three
no,
takes, and basically off to eat more donuts. We
no.
we didn't work it too hard. Anyway, it
And
was an amazing experience. Go ahead.
and your singing was just beautiful. It adds so much to the album. I Can't Make You Love Me brings tears to my eyes every time I hear it. Every time I hear it.
You know,
Uh,
it's funny. I told Paul and Bill the other
that's your
day.
best work, I think, Angela. That one tune is your best song I've heard from you.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I have to tell you the story of how that came about, which is Paul, can be stubborn now and again, and
Oh no, not Paul.
he really, really wanted me to sing that song, and I fought him actually and did not want to sing it. First of all, I love Bonnie Raitt, so I was like,
Yeah,
"What on earth am I
I know.
doing?"
Yeah,
And I was like, "You know what? I think you should get a different vocalist to do this. I'll just produce it. It'll be great." And he was like, "No, not a chance." And I was like, "No, I think it's gonna be great. Let's think about the vocalists we know. We know blah blah. We know that person. What about that person?" He's like, "No." I was like, "Well, I don't really want to do it." I said, "Okay, I'll try." And I remember it was the first thing that we did was that single, and I, drove over to the Palisades where Bill's place is. And I remember I got there like an hour early because Paul and I have this in common. I'm always insanely early. And I drove down Sunset and I literally sat in my car and I was so scared to sing that song. I literally was
oh,
overcome. I was
Angela.
crying in my car,
Oh,
trying to warm up, and I just thought, I'm just going to bring the emotion of absolute terror that I'm feeling right now to the song. So, not to put too fine a point on it, it's my absolute abject terror at trying to try a song that had already been nailed, right?
yeah,
Like, it would
right,
be to me the equivalent of like trying to sing a Whitney Houston song. That
right.
song, Bonnie Raitt did it so beautifully. Um, there's
Yeah.
really no need to sing it again ever. But and also because Bill's son, Billy, who we call Chill, just for the sake of
Yes.
being able to divide the Bills, he and Bill bring a certain intimacy to their vocal recordings, where it's very revelatory, as in revealing, and you feel very vulnerable when you bring that much kind of emotional content to your singing. And I felt very naked the way I was singing that song. And I actually had to put the mic and the little baffle between me and Billy and Bill, so I
Okay.
couldn't see them.
See them. Right. Right.
So I felt protected enough to be able to go that deep. And I know other vocalists will understand. There's really something so terrifying about kind of going to that emotional place. And I think it's why people sing technically very well, but a lot of times you really don't get that emotional content, or that storytelling content where you can feel that someone is telling something very deep and resonant, that's a real experience, an organic experience. I don't want to go on too much about it because it sounds a little whatever, sha, but but it is something that if there are any vocalists who might be watching this Zoom or whatever, I want them to know that that it's not easy. You kind of have to dig deep and feel a little blood and sinew to get that kind of recording. But the weird thing about live versus recording is when you're recording something, you can go there, right? You can go there a little more easily because you just have to capture it for that one moment.
that one moment.
Um, and I think that that's different in terms of, playing live. Yes, it is that one moment, but it's a little different than the recording part of it. The recording part of it is more like a photograph. It captures just
It
for
does.
that second what it is that you're trying to say. And of course, the most important thing about any singing is you have to know what that story's about.
Right.
And
Right.
if you don't know who you're thinking of and it's not something entirely personal, you're probably not going to get that emotional content that you want.
Right.
So, long story short is, I really appreciate the compliment. I just wanted people to know that it wasn't something that I just came in and, just flipped out real easy. It cost me, crying for an hour before I went
Right.
into the
Right.
studio.
Right. Well, it came
Um,
through on the vocal. It came through.
Yeah.
Um,
And so and I think that's true of a lot of music. I think that people shouldn't be scared to commit that far
it's
emotionally.
we were joking about donuts, but there's a seriousness of purpose that unites all of us. And there's the joy in the making of the music, but there's a real serious. This is who we are. This is how we express ourselves in the world, is through our music.
Yeah.
Um, and so it becomes a very personal, very very private kind of of expression. And when it resonates with others, that's beautiful, but it doesn't have to, because it's your statement. um, and if you tie together with enough other people, you can make a go of it in the music world. But I used to tell my students that I was a high school teacher for many years, and I would say to them, most of you will never make a living doing this, but the joy and the personal expression that you get from making music, and the sense of purpose that you have, that stays with you and can your whole life. And you can make and create music your whole life long,
Yep.
whether you do it as a profession. Those of us that have tried to do it as a profession face these issues of how do you generate the income
Yeah.
from this too. And in this day and age, as you were referring to Colin and Sam earlier, in this day and age for young players, it's a challenge unlike anything I've ever seen. We had a route when I was growing up. We had a route which was get to the studios,
Right.
uh, and that dried up as I was emerging.
Yeah.
I did some studio work earlier on in the TV and movie industry that's out here, and that dried up early on in my career, and I saw that was not going to be the way. So I chose education as a way of generating the income while I could play.
Right.
Others, like my son Colin, don't want to choose that route. They want to go playing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the issues facing those guys to make a living is real substantial now.
It
But the
is.
joy they have in creating music is infectious.
Mm-hmm.
And I love playing with Sam, and I love playing with Colin. You put me down with those two saxophone players, any place, anytime, any style of music, and I know we're going to go home together here on
Yeah.
this. It's going to be
Yeah.
it's
You
so
know,
cool.
and those guys are so pure of purpose. I mean,
Yes, they are.
Sam is going out. I'm happy to say Sam is going out on tour today, actually Friday. He's going out with Cobra Man for a month and a half,
Good.
and I think that's one of the ways that people can generate money is touring seems to be one of
Yes.
those ways. And I'm hoping, I feel like the general public is starting to understand, and I keep putting it in the promos for this record. If a person wants to support music, you really have to go to the website
Yes.
of the person and pay for the music and download it. If you want to play it digitally on your phone or whatever, you can certainly do that. You just have to go to, in our case, outrageous8records.com, and then
Right.
you go to the record. I know it is another step. I know that everybody's in a hurry and they're very busy, but if you really do support the idea of there being music and people creating music, if people want to, that's the way to support them. If you stream it, if you do Spotify, all that stuff is so convenient, and we are on streaming and all that kind of stuff. But that
Right.
really doesn't pay much. And
Right.
funny enough, I just had breakfast with my friends, and they were like, "Oh, didn't they sort that out? Isn't everybody being paid now?" And I said, I'm not sure where that messaging came from, but I guess the real answer to that is no. No one is being paid
No.
fairly in any way for streaming. Music isn't.
No.
Um, So I just think the public in general, people come up to us all the time at our live shows and they say, how can we support you? So just to inform people, that's the way, is go to the website and download the music, no matter who the artist is. That's the
Right.
only way to connect the artist and them being financed. Um, so I think people really want to. I think they love music. I mean, our experiences playing out live, and you guys actually have a gig coming up really soon. I just saw that post. So just so everybody knows, Craig has a big band, full bit. Is it 17 pieces?
It's a 17-piece band, yes, with a plus two vocalists and me as the fearless. We call me the semiconductor. So
And you guys have a regular gig that is like literally sold out every time you play there. It's at the Barclay.
in
Tell
South
tell tell us a
Pasadena.
little bit about that gig.
That's a gig we do once a month. And we're this month we're going to do it the second Tuesday. We're normally the first Tuesday of each month, but this month will be May 9th at the Barclay at 7:30 and 8:30. And that's a gig that we really look forward to doing. And the band, it gives the band a purpose.
Yeah.
So that we rehearse normally every Tuesday, and then now we have a reason to rehearse to get ready to do this gig, and the band has a great deal of fun. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, everybody
and you've
does.
appeared with us, and you're going to be doing it again sometime in the near future here. So
I hope so. I
uh,
love singing with that band.
Paul said you wanted to sing with us again, and I told him, well, Paul, she doesn't even have to say that. She's gonna be singing with us again.
Well, you have two amazing vocalists right now. Ernie Gilbert is one of them, and Wanda. Tell me her last names again.
Wanda Ray Willis.
That's right. I
Willis.
only knew Willis. So Wanda Ray Willis is their female regular vocalist, and Ernie Gilbert is their male vocalist. They do everything. I mean, they do.
Everything.
Ernie really does amazing kind of 40s stuff.
Yeah.
It's really, he finds amazing arrangements, and the players are just killer in that band. I mean, I have been there on a Tuesday when I'm not singing. I go see the band, and that place is packed.
Yeah.
And the payment is tip based. So if you go down there to see Craig and the band, please bring a little bit of cash and tip the band, because the way the music industry is in Los Angeles is that the clubs typically don't pay the band, and we are dependent on the tips that the people from the public put in a jar. And so we would love it if everybody brought a little bit of cash to help the band out.
Help the
Um,
band. Help the band.
Help the band stay. Give us some donuts.
Yep.
So I mean, we love that band, and again, I can't express my gratitude clearly enough for you and the energy that you bring to music. How inspired I am by you when I come and sing with the band or come see the band. Your abject joy, the energy that you bring to music and to your band or wherever you arrive with your trombone is inspirational for me. It really is. And how you've passed it down to a generation of another group of amazing musicians like Greg and Colin is also just mind blowing. I hope that the next generation of musicians can find a way to eke out a living, and I think that that's gonna start happening. I feel like the general public who are music fans, are starting to put together
Right.
that they have to engage in the process if they want this to exist.
Right.
So I can't thank you enough for everything that you did, from location to talented sons and your own presence in Paul's record. It had its trials and travails, but it really, for me, altogether was an amazing experience getting this record completed. And like I say, we started to say at the beginning, when the record's recorded and you're happy finally with the tracks, tweaking and
Right.
putting
Right.
everything, to making sure everything's tuned, to making everything is all together, that's about 20% of the project. And I hope everybody out there who's aspiring producers or musicians understand, if you don't have the artwork already in the works when the record's done, you still have a ways to go.
Ways to go.
If you haven't already paid the publishing on those, if there are any covers,
Yep.
it's a process. So
Yep.
you just have to be ready to go through that process after the music's actually done. And I couldn't be more excited that we are countdown. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday is May
Monday.
Day.
Monday, May Day. It hits. It drops. It
And
drops.
It's worldwide. We debuted at number 3. I found out yesterday,
Right.
for DJs adding Paul's record to their spins. So I'm just so thrilled that people are liking it and how interesting and eclectic the record is. And thanks to Greg and you and Colin, it just is an amazing record. So thank you so much for everything you contributed, just in energy and joy and musicianship, all of it. And that's why I wanted to come on a Zoom with you, because I just really the point of this countdown is to express my personal gratitude to everyone who really pushed the rock up the hill with me. I just couldn't be more grateful.
The pleasure is all ours. The Kupka clan says, good luck, God bless, and good Godspeed, man, because this has been a journey.
It has been a journey, and you guys are on a similar journey with your big band record, and I know it's being spun on radio stations, and you guys are not quite at the point, but what should people look for with that record? It's called Tracks Wax, or what's the name of that record?
Tracks by Wax.
Tracks by Wax, okay.
By Michael Weatherwax. And like you, it took him a long time to get the sound the way he wanted to get the sound. And once he got it, holy smokes, it sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
So to be involved in 2 different projects, both coming out about the same time, for me personally is just, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I can't believe that here I am, and there's 2 albums coming out. And I get to play on both of them. So
I know. It's coming up roses.
Yep.
So Tracks by Wax, keep an eye out for that one, you guys. That's a 17-piece amazing project that Craig and Michael Weatherwax have worked on the last couple of years. Yep. And of course, May Day. May 1st, Paul Litteral's record comes out. And Craig, thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming on the Zoom with me. I really appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for joining us on the Zoom. We will see you Monday when the record drops. Bye, y'all. Thanks, Craig.
You got it, Angela. Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye.